of Legends is a 5 versus 5 game where you choose your own character and have to work with your teammates to destroy the other team's base.
It's a very competitive game and it always brings out that competitive nature in people. But what makes it so different from traditional sports is that it's consistently evolving. League of Legends now is markedly different from League of Legends about 3 years ago. The map has changed.
When we look at competitive gaming over the last decade, esports has gone from being a sideshow and a distraction to now being the main event. Esports as an industry is in a very great place at the moment, in that it has been a sort of niche thing for a long time, up until maybe the last 3 to 5 years. The need to be the best at something is something that's in all sports people and anybody who's competitive. As video games have grown and the tech market has grown over the last few years, so has esports, because it's natural. The more players you have, the more people that want to say, I'm better than you, which then leads to competitions to prove it. And as the entire market has grown, the pyramid's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, which means the ability to be a professional player is a very, very real reality for a number of players.
I always used to be a very big gamer. When I was young, playing a lot of Tomb Raider and racing games just on a computer at home. And I was also very much interested in traditional sports, so football, cycling, tennis, all that. And actually went to journalism school because I really wanted to be a sports writer. But after college, as what happens to a lot of people, I guess, I kind of fell into this state of what do I want to do? I don't want to grow up yet. I don't know what I want to do. And I started playing a lot of video games again. And one of those was League of Legends.
I got into League of Legends because one day I was bored and I typed in LOL on the internet and League of Legends came up and I decided to try it. And I was really bad at it at first, so I just gave up and stopped playing, but eventually I came back into it and I just played it for a long time.
Well, I used to play a lot of Halo back when I was in high school. Just play it on the Xbox with my friends after school every day. And then I went to university and found League of Legends, and now that was it. I was sinking hours a day into the game and probably neglected my studies a little bit in favour of League of Legends, but hey yo.
My friend showed it to me in school a couple of years ago, I think maybe 4 years ago. They showed it to me and it was pretty funny actually, because they had played it for a long time and then like after just a couple of months I was already much better than them, you know.
I was in my final year of university doing a games design degree, and League of Legends was taking up a lot of my time, and I'd found in my second year that it was really difficult to balance the two. I was getting very little sleep, playing like 10 hours a day while also studying for another 8, and it came to the point where I needed to make a decision. I either had to focus on League of Legends or focus on university. And the main thing that decided it for me was that university is something I could pause for 3 years, whereas League of Legends wasn't. So I chose to defer at the start of my final year, and I now have 3 years to try and make something of myself with League of Legends. If I don't make it, I'll just return to university and get my degree. If I do make it, then I've made it.
It first started off as it was something that my friends introduced me to, and quickly I found that I was quite good at it, and through like playing by myself, I got noticed by other UK players and they approached me, they asked me to trial for the team, and that's how I got to the level that I am now.
I started playing League 6 years ago, more or less, when I started at the university at the same time. And I don't really remember why, but people started playing League like randomly, and when I tried the game I really enjoyed it, and I was playing with my friends, so you know, like you always like to play with your friends, and the League of Legends environment was completely different than in the other games, you know.
I've been a video game player for as long as I can remember. And there's home movies of me 5 years old being kicked in the back by my 3-year-old brother, and I'm not putting the controller down. So I've been playing for years, and in my teenage years I started competing. My parents didn't believe that I was in tournaments, they didn't believe there was a structure and organization. But after I started winning some competitions and hardware and prizes started arriving at my house, did my dad go, okay, explain this to me.
At first, when I decided that sort of competitive professional gaming was basically what I wanted to do with my life, it was a tough thing for my parents to take at first. My friends were always very supportive, but my dad, being that he's now 70, is from quite a different generation, and the thought of spending every day playing computer games as an actual job and a living was something very alien to him, and it took him quite a few years before he actually realised that this is actually something, this is a real thing. And coming home with sort of these checks, the trophies, actually bringing in some income, really changed his mind about it.
I tried to be a pro player at the beginning, the first 2 seasons, but with the university I had no time, so I just focused on the competition, you know, understand how other teams were playing, watch the scene as much as I could, and after that I had an opportunity to start as a coach in a team, in one of the best Spanish teams. At that time, no one was a professional coach. You know, like now the LCS recognize the coaches. When they gave me the opportunity to be a coach, I wanted to just take it and enjoy it.
I mean, I'm a really competitive person, and as soon as I saw there was kind of an industry in becoming a professional player, and I was spending most of my days playing League of Legends, even while I was at uni, I just decided to go for it.
Gaming has made such a huge impact in Hollywood and at the British Academy of Film and Television Arts Los Angeles, on which I'm on the board of directors. We have noticed this and we respect its importance in the industry. That's why we have recently extended our membership not just to film and television professionals and related professions, but also welcoming members of the games industry as well, because they are just on a rocket ship of impact in the industry. It's been noticed in recent years with movie stars, the likes of Kevin Spacey, for example, lending their talents to games, and it's great to give them this acknowledgement on behalf of BAFTA. We have our own Games Awards as well, to welcome them into the family, because no one can ignore the rise of games. It's just taking over Hollywood.
Back in the day, whenever someone said I'm a gamer, you'd think, you know, fat or lonely and doesn't have any friends, blah blah blah. But you know, I can say I can safely say I'm a gamer, and I'm able to just do whatever I want. I'm able to go out and party. I'm able to, you know, have fun with mates. I have so many friends. You know, like I'm able to do stuff socially. I'm able to, you know, literally do anything like a normal person. Like, you can't really, you know, have that stigma about gamers anymore. I feel like it's kind of outdated. That's essentially what I feel about that. Yeah, gamers are just like normal people. Weird, right? But yeah, we just like to play games and do other stuff. You know, it just happens that we like to play games more than other things.
The movie and music industry was overtaken by gaming a couple of years ago in terms of revenue. It's the new entertainment realm. It has been for many years. People still want to go and watch movies. They're never going to stop doing that. They're never going to stop listening to music. But what gaming offers is a way of combining all of these methods of entertainment into your own immersive and, more importantly, interactive experience. I think that's where games have got the edge. Not only can it be you can affect the storyline, or you can do what you want to do, you can engage with your friends and then bring them in. It can be very much an active rather than a passive experience that you get with the traditional industry. I don't think it's going to destroy, I mean, it's like when television came on, it's going to destroy radio and movies, you know, all this sort of stuff. It wasn't happening. They just find their own niches, and people still want to do those things. But gaming's still got a lot of growth to go. I mean, we're really only scratching the surface in terms of people. I mean, yes, the stats come out and you hear like 3/4 of the population enjoy games from the latest Yuki stats. But if you still walk down the street, on the high street, and you say to 10 people, would you call yourself a gamer? I reckon 9 of them will say no. But then you start asking them questions like, so what you got in your pocket? You got a smartphone? Play Candy Crush on the way to work? Go home, do you have a Wii Fit? You know, you play any of that? Have a PlayStation? Do Just Dance with the kids every now and then? And soon before you know it, they're sort of saying, do you want to go and answer my first question again? It still has that stigma attached to it, and we're losing it, but I think that's a generational thing. As we go 10 years down the line, I think we'll see. You ask any of these people here, they've grown up with it. It's nothing unusual to them. They still go and see movies though. Loads of people from the office, we're not a company of gamers. Still go and see the latest movies. We love it. We enjoy games a bit more though.
So the main thing that made League of Legends the leading for esports is that the game is so accessible for a casual player, but also a competitive player. There is a clear grassroots option for people who want to become a pro. If I want to become a player in the LCS, I put together my team, I try and qualify into Challenger Series, which is the equivalent of the championship. I win the Challenger Series, and I qualify into LCS. I'm an LCS professional player in Europe now. It's a very plausible route that people who are very good at the game can take. And it's an actual real career opportunity. And no other esport offers that.
For League of Legends, it is an international competitive sport, and we have 5 major regions. So it's North America, Europe, South Korea, China, and then Taiwan and some of the Southeast Asian countries. And these 5 regions will have a varying number of teams, from 8 to 12 professional teams. Teams are comprised of 5 players in-game, substitutes, which can go as high as 3 to 5, coaches, analysts, managers. And these teams all compete on regular weekly scheduled shows.
The LCS is the League Championship Series. It's basically the top 10 teams play against each other every week. And all these teams, they play at an event in the offices in Berlin. So they all live in Berlin in gaming houses and work in their offices there. And that's where they sort of play and practice, and that is sort of the main forum for the European teams to sort of show off how good they are. And from there, they can also look to go to the World Championships as well.
You only get a chance to go for Worlds if you're in the professional LCS. So there is 10 spots, I believe, in the LCS for both North America and Europe. So there are teams that will never get the opportunity to get there because they're just denied that spots. But it breeds that competition that's like, you know, you have to be the best to get to those top 10 positions.
What Riot has established is there is a global league. You have a league in Europe, America, Taiwan, Korea, China, but then you now also have the national leagues. You have Turkey have their own, basically LCS. It's an actual legitimate career choice for people who are in Turkey to play in the Turkish LCS. They make tons more than national wage. People really look up to them. They're superstars there. There are national leagues popping up in now the UK, Russia, Spain, France, Germany, Belgium. People like me have a place to actually play in now. We're not good enough for the LCS yet, sure, but now we can actually be something. And these leagues as well are popping up in Brazil. Brazil have a thriving league.
So how to get into the LCS? As a team, you have to first get into the Challenger Series, which is kind of like the one below. So the LCS is kind of like the Premiership in football, and then the Challenger Series is like the one division below that. And so if you can win the Challenger Series and you can try and get promoted, and of course LCS players or teams can get relegated. So that's how teams and organizations would go up. Typically for a player though, what usually happens is an LCS team will have a spot available, perhaps in a position like jungle, for example, and then they'll hold tryouts, or they'll look at the best Challenger Series junglers and then pick their favorite out of that, offer them, you know, a contract, and they'll probably say yes because it's the LCS, and then they'll go up that way. It's very rare and difficult, well, not very rare, but it happens much less often that a team itself and an organization sort of climbs through the ranks from, you know, the UK scene into the Challenger scene into the LCS. It's much more the case that a team sort of achieves something, and then the players themselves, or the best players, get picked from those and then go up that way.
When it comes to finding regional teams, an entire squad made up of players from one country, this is something that Europe as a region needs to actually look at, because we have these leagues, but all of the leagues currently are looking at a European audience. You know, the interconnectivity is so high, and it's so easy to compete with a Dutch player on a German server while playing from Spain and the UK, for example, that's what we've defaulted to. And it's created this almost greedy approach where if you can get a better player, but who's a little bit further away, you'll take that guy. So what I think we need to see in order for an all-British team to make it to the LCS and then to World Championship is support within the local scene, support within the local leagues, and a player base that is committed to proving you can have a top-tier competition with just British players.
So if we were to look at someone trying to turn League of Legends that they play in their bedroom or esports that they play in their bedroom to something that becomes a professional career for them, you have to look at multiple facets.
The best way to become a professional player, I think, is first of all, I think you have to rise up the solo queue league, because other coaches, other teams, you are going to play against them. You are going to play against the best players in the world. So they are going to meet you, and they are going to know if you are good or you are bad or something like that. So in the end, if they are looking for a mid laner, for example, and you are a mid laner, you are on top of the rank, and they think you are super good, they are going to try with you, and you have your opportunity to become a professional player. You have your opportunity to show them how good you are.
Every server has the top 200 players, and ideally you want to be in that. It's called Challenger, being a Challenger player. You get into those, and that's when you can sort of begin to get recognised and have some sort of credentials, which is backed just by your ranking. And then from there, you pretty much need team credentials. So you just need to get on as many teams as possible and earn as many accolades as possible. And usually how it starts is players will join a sort of lowish tier team outside of the main European scene and do well in that scene. And then the European scene will sort of notice them, and they'll slowly work their way up with sort of people recognizing them and having their names sort of out there. And then a team that's much more well established will pick them up maybe. And from there, it's kind of a matter of proving yourself and getting recognized, and then slowly working your way up. A lot of it as well is sort of contacts. Like if you know an organization or a few players on a team that happens to be looking for the position you play, then you can go up in that way as well. It's not just the case that you can become like number one on the ladder and therefore everyone will see you. However, that is obviously one approach that does work for some players. It's just less reliable, I think. Generally speaking, you just have to make the contacts and prove yourself in every situation.
The best advice I could give to someone that wants to become a pro player is if you're willing to give up a lot of your time and maybe most of your social life, and you accept your mistakes and you don't be a child about it, then you should just go for it, and you have to go ham or go home, really.
The best advice I could give is basically just to play a lot, focus on yourself and what you did wrong, and watch other people play that are better.
End of the day, you have to, at some point, make a decision between real life and League of Legends or esports. You have to make that decision. You can't do both if you want to take either seriously. So at some point you'll make that decision. Now, how do you get to that decision is very interesting, because I think, especially in League of Legends, there is realistically one or two ways that you'll ever get to a position where you're offered an opportunity like that. And it's just by, you play by yourself, you end up finding out that you're pretty good at the game, you climb up to the highest ranks in Europe or North America or Korea, and people notice you, because what happens on day-to-day in a League of Legends basis is people queue up as a singular person or whatever, they go into a 5v5 match, and they end up playing against people who are already professionals. And they do it again, and again, and again. And suddenly these professional players are like, hey, I recognize you, you've played a lot with me, you played pretty well in our games. And then he says, oh, have you heard about this guy, to his friend who's thinking about making a European or North American challenger scene level team. He goes, I played with this guy quite a lot, you should take a look at him, give him a tryout. And then they give him a tryout, and he performs well, and they say, oh, okay, we're gonna take you.
Well, I think one of the main attractions from the game is the fact that you can actually get really good just by playing a lot and practicing a lot, and then you get picked up by a team because you're doing good in solo queue is what we call it, is what the ranked system is, where you actually play to level up, because you can play for fun and you can still play for fun in the ranked system, but everything is a lot more serious. It's where you try and get a ranking and get as high as possible. And the nice thing is that you could theoretically sit at home, practice, and only play the game and just be really good at your own character and make it to the top and get picked up by a team.
You can play thousands of games, but maybe you don't improve. If you want to improve, you have to understand your mistakes, try to fix your mistakes. And another thing you can do is watch other professional players, how they play, streamings, or talk with them about what they do, or try to analyze the game.
I think a lot of players find it hard to accept their mistakes because, I mean, it's just a general human thing, you know, to not be, like, if someone points out your mistake or something, you get maybe defensive or emotional or whatever, you know, but you just have to put all that aside and think of the bigger picture and just think about yourself, and acting like a child about it won't help yourself improve as much as just taking it and accepting it and learning from it.
League of Legends is a team game. You're not going to join a team and immediately have perfect results and have perfect synergy and know exactly what everyone's going to do. Yes, some people bond better with people than others, but you need to take your time about it. You need to be circumspect. A lot of people expect to get results straight away, and it's never going to happen. You're playing against the highest level people in the UK. If you want to be consistent, you have to be practicing every other day. You have to have strategies, you have to go through pick and ban. You can't just do the exciting stuff, you can't just do the games. You have to put the legwork into it as well.
If you want to be a professional League of Legends player, you probably need to spend, like, right now, 3,000 hours maybe playing League, or even more probably.
If someone's looking to become a pro player, I would say minimum 6 to 8 hours every day, maybe like 1 or 2 off days every week. But the thing that many people don't understand is it's not like 6 or 8 hours of just straight solo queue. Like it's like maybe 5 or 6 hours of solo queue and then 3 hours of watching their replays, like watching their mistakes and remembering them, maybe writing it down. And it's like I've seen people from solo queue, they would write down a list of why they lost the game and if they did anything bad, and then that list will slowly become smaller and smaller and smaller, and then they'll get really good, you know? Or you watch like tournaments, international tournaments that are being played, you see what the really good players do and you maybe mimic them, you know?
So there is a myth about players sort of reaching a certain age and then not being able to play anymore. They say like that your reactions slow down after you hit 23, you can't click as fast. These are they're just completely untrue. There are players, look at Counter-Strike. There are players in their 30s, married with kids, still on the top teams in the world. Skill doesn't go away. It just depends how good you actually are. Raw talent are what people have. You're given raw talent. But skill is something that only comes with hours and hours and hours and hours of practice. And these people that are still at the top, they're the ones who put in these hours and hours and hours of practice. Just because some new up-and-comer's got really good raw talent doesn't mean he will overtake someone in the LCS or someone who's been going for years. There are players such as Doublelift, players such as Yellowstar, who have been in the top professional league for 6 seasons, which is around 4 or 5 years. And they're still going. They are still the top 3 in what they do in the Western world. So it's completely untrue that there is a cap to any average person. It just depends on your mental fortitude. How long can you keep going on? How long can you keep putting in 12 hours a day, every year, to stay at the top? It just depends how badly do you want it.
For a winning team, obviously you need individual proficiency. I wouldn't say you don't all 5 have to be the best mechanical players. You can have someone in one role, maybe preferably to support, who's mechanically good, but maybe not the best, but who is a fantastic shot caller, or you can have a jungler who's a fantastic shot caller. So definitely that is the core of a good team, seeing how it's a team game. Someone who can say, okay, guys, we need to do this now, we need to go there, we need to do it as 5, or you two need to do that, and we need to take this objective. On top of that, I think A sign of a lot of good teams has been friendship, although it is still sports and competitiveness, and there is an edge because you still have to be able to tell someone that, that wasn't good. But I do feel like a lot of the top teams, like SKT, when you see them interacting with each other, they're just having a good time, because in the end, if you're not having a good time when you're playing, you're also not going to get very far.
To be good at any role, you always need communication for every role. That's the biggest thing right now, because of the whole team play thing. You need to communicate when you're strong, when you're not strong, and if there's something happening on the map that you should give information to your shot caller, and he can use that information to make a call or a judgment call or something. And everyone in the team can shot call as well. So I'd say communication is the first thing before even assigning a role to yourself.
The biggest factor, I think, is synergy. If you have 5 players that don't mesh together, individually they may be fantastic, but it's a team game at the end of the day. One player can't individually win the game by himself. So yeah, definitely synergy. And with that, you need likability as well. So you need good relationships with your teammates in and out of the game, which is what I think LAN events like this help you realise if you enjoy being around your teammates. And it helps establish those connections so you can progress as a team.
I think the thing that people underestimate in teams is the actual synergy between the players. It's not all about mechanical skill. Everyone's got good mechanics, everyone can play the game. It's about how you interact with each other and how you want to build your team. It's the motivations behind the players. You can't just play to win, you have to play to become better as a team, because otherwise as soon as you start losing, the whole team's going to disband. It's a problem we've had a lot in the UK a few years ago, was just teams would join for one event, they'd lose and they'd be like, well, what's the point playing anymore? And now we see more people getting the coaches in to give them the motivation so that they end up playing over a longer period of time.
And communication is one of the hardest things to get right, because most of the people you'll be playing with at this kind of level are there because they're skilled, they have raw talent, they're really good at. But that doesn't mean they can communicate or work well in the team. It means they have good individual talent. So it's one of the hardest things for people to learn, is how to actually communicate with each other.
So the average age for players on teams is between 17 and probably 22. I think 17 and 24 is an honest representation, but truthfully, the stronger, better performing guys are within that late teens, early 20s bracket. There are a couple of professional players that are still competing as old as 27, 28, 29, but this is a young man's sport. Hand-eye coordination, reflex time, mental agility is a very high premium, and it is something that only the best of the best, 10 to 20% of those guys, can maintain for periods of longer than 2 to 3 years.
So in League of Legends, you have 5 roles. You have a top laner, a jungler, a mid lane, AD carry, and a support. Top laner's mainly there to be like your tank, as it were, take up all the damage, initiate things. Jungler, help things get rolling around the map, roams around trying to get kills. Mid is your big damage dealer, AD carry is your other big damage dealer, and the support it's their job to keep everyone alive. So for me, for my first 2 years of competitive, I was a top laner. I mainly liked playing these initiators, these tanky champions, because I felt I had a lot of control in team fights in the game in itself. And part of team play is good shot calling. Shot calling is, imagine in a football game you have your manager at the sideline telling you what to do. With League of Legends, you have one of them in game. That's one of your players as a shot caller. He tells you, do this, do that, we're doing this. And I felt from being in top lane, that was kind of hard for me to do. I've always been a shot caller, and it's very difficult to execute from being a top. There are some players who do it in the LCS, which is basically the best league in Europe for the best teams. There are a couple of top lane shot callers, but it's mainly in support.
I guess for a top laner, what I would look for is someone who knows how to damage control their lane, knows how to kind of stay even whilst maintaining like the similar pressure. And then a lot of it is how well they use their teleport. Currently, teleport's been used now top lane for ages. And teleport can completely control the pace of the game. You can just having teleport can prevent your enemy making moves. So how well they use that is like very critical in a top lane, and how well they communicate about that. A jungler, I mean, a jungler's kind of job is to set up their lanes, generally speaking, so that the lanes either get ahead or certainly don't fall behind. What I like to see from a jungler is somebody who controls their laners, so tells their laner, I want you to do this in 30 seconds so that I can do this, and then we're going to do this. And just takes a very sort of commanding lead in the early section of the game. It can help laners not have to think about the strategy and just focus on what they have to be doing in the lane. From a mid laner, it's quite interesting because mid lane is probably one of the most diverse roles, but personally I like to see a mid laner who can use whatever advantage they confer in mid lane to then pressure the entire map, because they are in the center of the map. They are probably one of the most strongest champions on the map, and that at the points in time. With that, I like to see someone who can transition the lead, but also make sure that they, don't sort of fall behind. I guess that's just what you want for everybody. But generally speaking, someone who can push advantages is a very strong thing to have in a mid laner. A diverse player as well is very useful. AD carry, I mean, a lot of people just say it's all about mechanics. I mean, and I guess that's true to an extent. An AD carry just needs to kind of output their damage per second as high as humanly possible to kind of maximize their sort of team fight efficiency. And I think that is like the most critical thing for an AD carry. But what I really like to see from top tier AD carries is when they communicate really well with their support, and they actually have they work as a pair, as if they're one mind. And you'll see in top tier support and AD carry comp duos that they are so on the same page and so in sync that they can just sort of perform these kind of like almost incredible feats where they actually have so much synergy. So that's really, really important for a marksman. And support, typically they're the shot callers, but a support will have similar things to the AD carry with regard to communication, but a support also needs to be really, really keen on how to put down vision, and then they're sort of act as an in-game leader in the sense that they have the least mechanical role, so that you can spend the most time looking at the map and communicating with the team and figuring out the strategy. But from individual players across the board, actually, it seems to be coming out that the best form of shot calling is where everyone kind of shot calls for themselves, which is very interesting now. It's like democratic shot calling is what they're calling it. It used to be the case that you would have one shot caller and he would just tell everyone what to do. But now it seems to be that you have individuals who are constantly saying what they're doing, and then somehow it always works. And you'll hear this in his views, like I know that Doublelift, who's the AD carry for TSM, says that he's in charge of lane allocation for everybody on the team. And then you have Yellowstar, who was their support, who's constantly talking about when to fight and that sort of thing. The AD carry calls out targets and fights, the mid laner calls out his roams, all these sort of things. So everyone kind of communicates together in this sort of democratic method.
To be honest, I think any player can play any role as long as they practice it a lot and understand what that role does. Like support, you have to understand you're never going to really get any farm, and you're there to support your AD carry. And when a certain time comes, you have to go ward or roam or whatever. And then mid lane, it's like you just, I don't know, you just have to understand your role really and be good at communicating. And if you do something bad in lane, for example, if mid lane does a bad trade, then just learn from it really. There's no thing that makes a good role. Some roles require more mechanics than others. For example, I'd say AD carry requires the most mechanics, and mechanics is like reaction speed and accuracy with the mouse, etc. But some roles don't require as much, which is like support or maybe top lane because of this whole tank thing. But apart from that, it's all the same. For example, as a jungler, what you practice is like junglers are really lane dependent. So like if mid has pressure or something, you can use that. If your mid laner is like pushing in the enemy mid laner, you can use that to go into the enemy jungle, or like, I don't know, go with your mid laner and gank bot lane or something like this. And I guess for jungler, it's really just like you look at it's a lot of decision making for jungler, since you're doing camps most of the time. It's not like you're against the player, you're against the environment. And I guess after every game as jungler, to improve, you just see like you just pause the map, you pause the game, and you're just like, okay, I just finished this camp. What should I have done now? Should I go here, or should I just do another camp or whatever? But for example, for top lane, I would say it's just you just need to work on trading and communicating your TP and communicating what's happening in your lane, like whether the lane is slow pushing the enemy, how low the enemy top lane is, like if you can just dive him and kill him, and if you have TP advantage, you want to make a play on the bot side of the map. Every role has its different kind of perks that you have to just be really good at.
So to get into competitive gaming, or to make it in competitive gaming, I think there's I think you can associate it to wanting to be good at anything, right? You know, if you've got a village park footballer, for instance, and he's really good at football, and all his friends say, oh, you're really good at football, you could be a good footballer. You know, he's going to want to do everything he can. He'll try and join the local league. And it's the same with League of Legends. A lot of these players probably may not have been good at anything in their lives apart from playing games. I mean, it's sad but true. At the end of the day, this is one facet of their talent that they've found has been very successful for them. So they take this bedroom hobby, they're playing at the top levels in Europe just based on playing by themselves. Just as a point, League of Legends, if you play League of Legends and you want to get good at it, you climb what's called a ladder. So that's like in chess, they have an ELO rating system. Well, in League of Legends, they have exactly the same thing. You have things that are equivalent of Grandmaster in chess. It's called Challenger in League of Legends. So you climb to this level, you aim to get noticed, teams will pick you up, and then you try and fight for it that way. And it's the same in the UK. We've had players that have been on teams in the UK, they've fought through ESL Premiership, they've played in iSeries events, people have noticed them, and then they've taken that kind of semi-casual bedroom hobby into, hey, wait a minute, I'm playing in Europe for potentially quite big money and potentially a career here. So, it's just people finding that one skill that they've got, and that skill could just be, hey, I'm pretty good at League of Legends. So they just want to try and push that forward. But like you said, in every sport, there's people are going to take risks. And we have that in the UK. We know people have taken risks. They've dropped out of university. They've stopped their education, all in this dream to become a professional League of Legends player. The issue is that there's no one telling them that actually they can't make it. And that's the problem, because if you're challenger in League of Legends or even master, which is like basically the top 1,000, 2,000 players in Europe, you're really good at the game. But that no one's telling you that being really good at the game doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a really good teammate. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to join a really good team. Doesn't necessarily mean you can find 4 other really good players and make it to a professional league. So people get to this point, they're like, hey, I'm challenger in League of Legends. I am top 250 in Europe. I'm going to drop out of school. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to become a professional gamer. And then they realize that A, they don't fit into a team. B, they're not even the best in their role. There's another 40 players in that 250 who are better than them at their role. There's not space for 40 players of the same role in professional League of Legends. So there's just nothing stopping them from when they hit that barrier to say, this is, I'm challenger, this is a good idea, I should go for it. And they drop out thinking they can make it, and they don't. So teams will professionally, that will always have this support staff like an analyst and coach. And they will look at the way that those players are playing and the team is playing. And the beauty of esports is that you can, like filming a football match, you can go back and look in detail at specific areas that you want to look at during a game, and then your analyst and your coach will say, that went wrong, this went wrong, that went right, this went right, etc., etc. And they will then give that feedback to the players, who will then look to improve on it on the next game. So it's a learning process, a feedback loop, if you like. So the feedback comes from the coaches and the analysts, it goes into the players try to enact that and see if they get better, and it goes over and over again. And that's how teams adapt, that's how they play well, that's how they improve.
In this day and age, and in order to be competitive in League of Legends, you need to have a good support structure. So I actually think you don't start with the players first. I think you need to get a strong coach, guys who can manage young, sometimes juvenile players that have limited experience being on a team, being in a professional organization, working with coaches, etc. You need to get analysts, guys who can break down the game, break down the team. You need to have structure. Then you need to source players. Now, sourcing players is ironically going to be one of the easier parts, because we have a very clear ranking system in League of Legends where you can see every nickname of every player. You can see how many games they play. You can see what they're playing. There's a lot of resources available to dig into what is Trevor Henry playing this weekend? How many games is he playing? How well is he doing in those games? And then once you start to source your players, you need to put them into a structured environment. Now, this is something that we're starting to see Western teams developing. Strict structures with practice hours, with gym built into their schedules, cooking time, going outside and playing football time. The most successful teams in North America and in Europe are starting to encourage these. They're bringing in lifestyle coaches that are helping with cooking, that are helping with all of these non-game related activities. And I think that's something that you need to grasp and understand. It's not just playing a game with your mates anymore. We're now starting to get into territory that you see in traditional sports with a big infrastructure behind the Ronaldos and the Messis of the world. They look good and play well, but they're only in that position because of the 30 people behind them that you don't see.
Players cannot be expected to self-reflect on their own gameplay. They'll bring their own emotions into it. They'll look at their own play and say, oh, I played really badly there, when maybe they didn't. Or they'll look at their teammates' play and say, well, I didn't do anything wrong, this is all you guys. You know, you cannot expect teams as just 5 individual members, 5 players, to look back at their games and actually critically analyze it in a way that is healthy. You need someone who is impartial, not in the game, has the knowledge to do so, and will sit there with his team and say, actually, this is what went wrong. You know, and he won't have that emotional tie because he wasn't in the game. He could see it from a completely impartial standpoint. So realistically, if you want to build a team that is looking to improve over a set period of time, you need a coach. There's no other way about it. It's end of story.
A coach is important on a team for so many reasons. I mean, for a start, they can be like a strategic coach, so they can do all of the strategy and all of the sort of planning and take that away from the players and just sort of make them, you know, it sort of makes their life easier in that sense. They can watch through replays and help the players improve and grow, which again, like, takes more pressure off them. So instead of them watching 2 hours of themselves, a coach can watch 2 hours for them and then just sort of almost like tell them or watch it with them and encourage them. A lot of what a coach will do as well is like to help them sort of keep in a good mental space. When they're feeling down, you sort of keep them, try and bring back to neutrality. When they're feeling hyped, you kind of keep them going, that sort of thing. As well as generally just finding ways to improve your team and improve the players as a whole. So looking out for their mistakes, trying to call them up, trying to encourage them to improve themselves, you know, encouraging them to watch their own replays, encourage them to question themselves, whilst creating an atmosphere that allows for growth as opposed to, oh, I think you did this wrong, and then they get upset. You say, okay, team, let's have like a critical sort of, you're gonna have like a 10 minutes of everyone criticizing each other in a nice, constructive way, as opposed to just sort of like flame or something.
Coaches are pretty important because, like, if I have a problem with one of my teammates, then I could, like, if I was to say it, you need like a third person, you know? If I was to say to one of my teammates, you know, you did this bad, blah, 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 it might cause commotion. But if someone from outside the game, like a coach, just makes sure that everyone on the team is okay with each other, everyone's lifestyle is good, and there's no internal problems within the team, and I think that's really important. It's like kind of like a best friend of the team, basically. That's there to just sort out all the drama or whatever.
I think it's really important to have a coach because, for example, sometimes the players, they can talk to each other because of some reason, maybe because their emotions or something like that, they feel mad or whatever. So the coach should be there and talk with them, you know. Don't face them, but just lead the discussion, for example. Some teams, they have a strategic coach, let's say, he focuses only on the game. Other coaches are more like lifestyle coaches.
As a pro player, generally what you'll do is you'll play games as a team versus other teams. They're called scrims. And then you'll take that footage of the game, you'll work with your coach and analyst, and you'll look at it and you'll say, okay, this worked well here, this didn't work so well, what did you do wrong here, what did you do wrong there? And it's all a learning process. So these pro players, they'll play themselves, they'll play with their, you know, the analysts will have their input, and as a team, they will consistently adapt to that game. The mark of a great team is a team that can adapt time and time again through different changes in the meta. When I say meta, it's the flavor of the game, the way it is played, the popular tactic or pick, you know. So teams that can adapt to each individual meta and consistently stay on top, they are the mark of a great team. And that's because they will have the staff that supports their team for them. They have the players that will adapt to each individual patch. It's a process that really requires a lot of input, but with the right staff and the right attitude from the players, you know, you'll always see a result despite the game changing.
When you come into a day of practice, you should set yourself or you do set yourself individual goals for the day, whether it's for the individual game that's coming up or throughout your day, what you want to achieve. Because trying just to sort of mindlessly spamming games, playing sort of 12 hours or whatever, sounds really good in practice, that I have 12 hours work today. But if you haven't set out to achieve anything, you've just wasted 12 hours. So it's important to have a goal in mind for the time you're spending in, for just something to get out of it. So as an example, my goal for a day might be like, I don't want to die more than 3 times in a single game. So I'll play for the 12 hours, but that's my goal. My goal is not die more than 3 times in each game. And what that will teach me is if I can accomplish that, I will have learnt to play safer, which is better for competitive.
I think most pros, do something to try and stay healthy. I know that like Reckless, for example, like meditates in the morning and like does some yoga and stuff just to try and like, you know, calm himself down, and then, or, you know, sort of fitness and well-being and whatnot. I think a lot of players like go to the gym or go for a run or just do something sort of casual maybe for a bit. And then most pros just have scrims for them like the entirety of the day. So it's just team practice against, you know, other similar teams. And they just do that for the majority of their day. And then after those, most of them usually just like play solo queue or stream or sort of basically just keep playing, because, you know, that like the block of scrims itself is never going to be enough for you to sort of get good enough, or at least not in themselves. That's not how they see it. So they just so basically, I mean, they kind of just play all day. But I think it's kind of much more structured when you live in a sort of gaming house. From my team's perspective, we obviously don't all live in a house together, but generally the players, some of them have school, so of course they go to school and then come out from school, and then we have scrims from 6 till 9 is our block. So I have the players on half an hour before, and then half an hour after, and half an hour before for like a sort of like briefing, running through anything new, explaining what we're going to do in scrims, and then half an hour after of kind of like a debrief, to sort of, you know, make sure everyone's on the same page, or if there's any, I don't know, arguments they get resolved, or if it, I don't know, anything like that, anything that needs, you know, I need to look into or rewatch in the VODs, etc. And then after that, all of them just like go and play solo queue again. I mean, their life is kind of just like solo queue, scrims, solo queue, and then a bunch of them do sports or socialize whenever, but as one does. But generally speaking, it's kind of like all of their free time is kept up with League of Legends, whether that's scrims or solo queue. Yeah.
Here, we wake up at 11 or half past 11. Everyone take a shower, of course, breakfast, and after that we do some activities. For example, we watch some replays, or maybe the Koreans, they have English class, or maybe we go outside and we play football, or I don't know, like different things every day. Then they warm up, they play some games before scrims. We have a lunch together every day. Then we talk a bit about conclusions the day before, what we want to practice, and we start the scrimming at 3. Yeah, and between 3 and 9 or 8, we scrim against other team, usually against other LCS team. And after that, on top of scrims, between scrims, we discuss what happened, what we can do better, everything about the game. And on top of scrims, what I want to do is talk with the players, maybe some interviews, you know, meetings with them, or watch replays, or watch other games, or things like that.
I wake up around 9, 10 maybe, and then usually we could go out and play some football, do some other stuff, come back, maybe watch some series, play some league, and then we scrim, which is we play against other teams from 3 to like 8, which is best of 5, so you play 5 games.
So the main preparation technique you'd use for playing tournament games is looking into and scouting the enemy teams that you play. What kind of picks do they play? How do they play? Do they play aggressive, defensive, safe, risky? And then you look into how these kind of things are exploitable. So a team that plays very aggressive takes a lot of risks. If you're a team that can then play safe and take advantage of the risks that they're taking and abuse them and punish them, you can win the game off of that alone. So to research that and find out if they are a risky team, you need to watch the games that they've played. Watch tournaments that they've played in, study the games. What do they do? Do they have patterns? Do they have specific champions that they like to play? Do they have specific champions that are essential to them winning? They only win when they pick this champion. Things like that, it doesn't come down to playing the game. It's the same as any other sport. Consider football, for example. All teams don't just run 4-4-2 every single game. They run a specific strategy against specific teams based on their strengths and weaknesses. And it's the same thing for League of Legends.
I think League of Legends has really struck a very important chord with their development of esports and their top players, because now they have players that are, they have fans. All of these players have fans, and it's like any sport. Some people will just watch a sport specifically to see a singular person play. And it's the same with our game. It's the same with League of Legends. Some people will tune in to watch one player play. And it's just grown the fan base of League of Legends in many different ways. Some people play the game to aspire to be like their heroes. I mean, this is the funny thing. Some of these 17, 18-year-olds, they are heroes to some people because they are just so good. Faker is undoubtedly a hero to somebody, if not multiple people out there. You know, there could be thousands of people that consider him a hero. And it's just turned League of Legends from that generic esport into an esport that's started to create online idols. You know, some of these people that will go down in history as being some of the best players we've ever seen, and they have influenced people's lives. People have aspired to be like them. People have tuned in to just watch them. It doesn't happen in every other esport. I don't know why, but in League of Legends we've really had that, and it's maybe only even going to get better for the future. And I think in general it's just the way esports is going.
I think there's a few players I sort of followed from the beginning. The team that was part of CLG EU, Wicked, Snoopy, Froggen, Crepo, and Yellow Pete. And those 5 players were kind of Europe's finest several years ago, and they were kind of like the only Western team to ever kind of like achieve anything in outside of just their small spheres. They actually went to Korea and actually competed there and did very, very well. From the beginning, like me and my group of friends were always like huge fanboys of them. So in a sense, I've followed like all of them and looked up to them. I kind of, when I played, I tried to imitate the styles of Froggen particularly. I mean, I was never nowhere near as good as him, but like at all. But you know, his kind of style of playing, I tried to copy and imitate. I just watched all of his games and stuff to kind of try and learn. So initially, it was those 5, and obviously they've gone on to do different things. One of them's still playing in the LCS, another one's in Challenger Series, one of them's a professional caster now. Another guy I think just, I'm not sure what he does, I think he kind of like cosplays and just does things in esports. And then the guy is like working on like legal stuff within like helping players and contracts and helping kind of esports as an industry legally grow. So they sort of inspired me to the beginning, and then now I look at coaches. There's like Daylor, who's the coach of Fnatic. From talking to some of the LCS players, I've heard like a lot about him, and everything I hear about him just makes him sound like fantastic to work under, and sort of the kind of coach that I would kind of quite like to be like. And then from a achievement point of view, the coach of SKT, who is a guy called Kokoma, in-game name is Kokoma, and he's this sort of like, you know, he's like, his accolades in League of Legends are insane. And he's sort of in there for like 2 world championships and like 6 OGN titles or something, I don't know. So he, you know, in my eyes, like I kind of want to have a legacy like his, but obviously that's like super far away. But it is the knowing that this guy's been around for however many 4+ years coaching and has achieved what he's achieved is just pretty remarkable, really.
Well, with the years, it's definitely become crazier and crazier how the players are seen, and of course with everything becoming more professional, they are streaming more, they are on the broadcast more, they are in interviews more, they are featured in ad campaigns, and their faces are everywhere, their voices are everywhere, and some of them are really, really recognized, like a Faker, like Xpeke here in Europe. And sometimes it's crazy what we see when we go to events. For instance, when we went to London, when we had the show in Wembley Arena, that the players needed a special escort to get from the arena to the hotel because there's thousands of fans just waiting and wanting pictures with them, which is amazing. But on the other hand, it's starting to get a little intimidating for them as well sometimes, and they're being recognized everywhere. It's becoming part of their job as well, but it's still very new for a lot of them. And I actually really commend, like some of them are very, very young, how to deal with all of that. And it's an effort because you can't let yourself be taken away by this person is asking for your picture, and this person is asking for your signature, and maybe there's a pretty girl that's asking for your signature, but you still have to perform when it matters.